Ellison with Dollar General, a pencil partner volunteer. I'll be reading to you The Fabled Stables, Trouble with Tattletails by Jonathan Auggie, illustrated by Olga Demidova. At the top of the world sat an island. At the heart of that island lived a boy named Auggie. Auggie was just like most other boys, except in one way. He had a job. Auggie worked in the Fabled Stables, a magical place full of one-of-a-kind creatures. Usually, Auggie loved his job, but not today. Today, he had a problem. Auggie was taking care of the unfeeling brute. This was a tricky task because Auggie had no idea what the unfeeling brute wanted from life. The creature had no eyes, no ears, no mouth, and no nose. Auggie was pretty sure it had a head, but he couldn't be certain. Will-o'-the-wisp drifted over. Any luck? Auggie sighed. Only bad luck. Auggie flopped to the ground. I've tried singing to her, feeding her, and taking her for a walk, but she won't respond. Maybe she wants to tickle fight. Willow was always up for a good tickle fight. Auggie picked up Finn and waved him in front of the brute. Maybe she wants to play fetch. Finn wriggled out of his grip. Maybe the thing just wants to be left alone. Some of us like being left alone. This was a rude thing to say, but what do you expect from a literal stick in the mud? At that very moment, in a village far away, a bell was ding, ding, dinging, as loud could be. It was an alarm bell. It belonged to a bank with an open front door. Two thieves strolled through the halls. They wore dark cloaks with heavy hoods. They had loot sacks and loot picks. They had plans and schemes. There was a vault in the basement of the bank, a vault with a one-of-a-kind treasure. The thieves walked into the vault and swiftly swept the treasure into their bags. And why didn't the guards stop them? This is a very good question. Auggie was on the roof cleaning out the busy beehives. He was still thinking about the unfeeling brute. How do you help someone who doesn't want anything? Willow was trying to catch a bisbee in her paw. Maybe Finn is right, she said. Maybe we should just leave her alone. Of course I'm right, Finn called from inside a hive. Auggie wiped the beeswax off his hands. I'm not ready to give up just yet. When Auggie came to the island, he made a promise to care for all the beasts in the Fabled Stables, even the hard-to-love beasts. He didn't stop caring for the busy bees just because they might sting him. Whatever the brute needs, it's my job to help. I know, Willa said. We can ask Professor Cake what to do. Professor Cake was the man who owned the island. He was a very old and very clever. He was also very busy. I know I shouldn't bother the professor, said Auggie, but maybe just this once. Boom! Suddenly the stable shook and shuddered and twitched and sputtered. A moment later, everything was still again. Auggie picked himself up. He and Willa looked at each other. A new arrival, they cried. Sometimes the Fabled Stables changed to make room for a new beast. The whole place would rearrange itself, and then Auggie would find an empty stall that led to a beast somewhere in the wide world. It was Augie's job to go out and rescue that beast from danger. Race you there, Auggie shouted. I win, Willa cried from 2 floors below. I'll get you next time, Auggie said, catching his breath. He slid down a rope and landed beside her. A new stall had appeared right next to the unfeeling brute. Auggie looked at the words on the sign. Tattletail. Tattletail? Willa wrinkled her nose. That doesn't sound like a very friendly thing. Auggie rolled up his sleeves. Friendly or not, it's our job to help. What did you say? Finn knocked the side of his head. I think I've got beeswax in my ears. You have ears? Willa said. Auggie paced in front of the gate, thinking, first we'll need supplies. We can't march in unprepared. You can't march in underwear? Finn repeated. Sort of. Auggie looked at the world beyond. Who knew what dangers could be waiting for them? We'll need a lantern and some rope and a bag and a map and my field book, and Willis hopped over the gate. Last one there's a rotten egg. Wait, Auggie called, but she was already gone. Auggie grabbed hold of Finn. It looks like a stick in the mud is all the supplies I'm going to get. He hoped it would be enough. Away I go, and away he went. Auggie found himself in the middle of a village. A sign over the gate read, "Welcome to Rainbow's End." The streets were empty, the stoops were empty, the shops were empty. Auggie shivered. The whole place looks abandoned. A Band-Aid? Finn picked wax from his ear. Are you hurt? Willa's tail twitched tall. There's someone hiding close by. I can feel it. Willa could always tell when people were playing hide and go seek. Come out, wherever you are. Over here, a voice squawked, in the alley. Auggie saw a lady peeking out from the corner. She looked nervous. She looked tired. Oh, hello, the lady said with a weak smile. I, didn't see you there. A furry face appeared next to her. That's a lie, the face said. She was spying on you. The woman shuffled out from her hiding spot. It's true. I was afraid you were more robbers. She offered her hand. I'm Mayor Clover. The furry face leaned over her shoulder and said, I wouldn't shake that hand if I were you. Right before you got here, she was picking her nose. I was not, Mayor Clover said. Check her finger if you don't believe me. Auggie peered at the talking creature. It was fluffy. It was long. It was shaped exactly like a tail. My name is Auggie, and I'm looking for a one-of-a-kind creature called Tattletale. Mayor Clover sighed. Well, you found it, only it's not one of a kind anymore. She raised her voice. You can all come out now. Dozens of other people shuffled out from their hiding places. Every one of them had a tail. Willa clapped her paws. This isn't a rescue, this is a party. Auggie wasn't so sure. Every person in town looked miserable. How did this happen, he asked. And so Mayor Clover shared her tale of woe. It all started when I found a box in the courtyard. The box wasn't addressed to me, but I was curious. I pried open the lid. To my surprise, the box was empty. But when I turned around, I discovered this strange creature had attached itself to me. At first, I thought I might enjoy having a tail, but then I learned something else about the tail. It could talk. Every time I did something, even a little bit wrong, the tail made sure everyone knew about it. She tracked mud on the floor. She took the last cookie from the cookie jar. She cut in line. She said a bad word. He didn't wash his hands. I wasn't the only one in trouble. My tail seemed to be able to multiply. Soon every person in the village had a tail of their own. The tails created so much confusion that when the robbers showed up, no one was there to stop them. Mayor Clover shook her head. And we've been stuck with these things ever since. She won't share. He stole my spot. Mayor Clover led them to a tower at the end of the square. This is where it all started, she said. Auggie heard a ding, ding, dinging sound coming from inside the tower. Is that an alarm bell? What's an alarm smell? Finn asked. Mayor Clover explained. Rainbow's End is home to a legendary pot of gold. If you take a coin out of it, 2 more appear inside. We keep it safe inside our bank. 2 guards protect it day and night. Not anymore, said another tattletale. 2 guards in uniform shook their heads. They had tails too. It's our fault, the first guard said. We were so busy arguing with each other that the robbers walked right past us. And now we've lost our precious pot. Precious snot, Finn said, gross. Auggie knew he wouldn't get much done if Finn kept interrupting. I'm worried about that wax in your ears, he said. Why don't you go clean it up? Finn gave him a confused look. If you say so. He shrugged and wandered off. Auggie turned back to the mayor. I can't help you catch the robbers, but I can help these tattletales. Yep. Willa gave a proud pirouette. It's our job to save one-of-a-kind creatures from danger. But they're not in danger, the mayor said. We're the ones in trouble. Auggie didn't want to argue in either case. The first step is to get them off you. He looked at the shops around. What could he use to lure away the Tattletails? And then he got an idea. A tempting, tasty idea. Auggie burst from the bakery with a tray full of bagels and brownies and cookies and cakes. Come big, come small, come snacks for all. The tails looked at the food, they opened their mouths, and they tattled. You'd better hide that cheesecake, it makes the mayor gassy. Keep Horace away, he already ate 2 breakfasts. Ophelia, you just double-dipped. Before Auggie knew it, arguments had broken out all across the village. Apparently, Tattletails don't care about food, he said. Auggie and Willa tried everything they could think of to safely remove the Tattletails. They tried scaring them off, tickling them off, tearing them off, and tricking them off, but nothing worked. It's hopeless, Auggie said, flopping to the ground. Ow, a voice belted from below. He's trying to smush me. Auggie jumped back up. His eyes went as wide as cherry pies. A new Tattletail had appeared, and it was attached to him. While Auggie was getting used to his new tail, Finn was wandering the streets of Rainbow's End, more than a little confused. Auggie had told him to go clean up, but that was not what Finn heard. Gold clean up, he muttered. What does that even mean? That's when he noticed something on the street. It was small, it was round, it was gold. Now I get it. Finn picked up the piece of gold and threw it in the trash can. He found another piece of gold nearby, and then another, and another. I'm doing an excellent job, he said to no one in particular as he threw more gold in the trash. People could trip over these. Finn followed the trail of gold coins all through the village. I wonder who dropped all this gold. He soon found the answer when, aha! Aha, aha! Finn stared at the robbers who were huddled in an empty schoolhouse. They had dark cloaks with strange masks on the front. They weren't just robbers, they were Rooks. The Rooks were a secret group of villains. They were always trying to steal one-of-a-kind things for their own wicked ends. They had once tried to capture Willa, and now they had stolen the pot of gold. Help! Finn screamed. It's the Rooks! The first Rook raised a fistful of sparkling dust. Zip it, she said, or I'll curse you with pixie powder. The second Rook raised a pair of scissors, and I'll snip you to bits with these magic shears. Finn was about to be frightened, but then he noticed something. Hey, he said, you've both got tails. The first Rook's tail said, for the record, that's not really pixie powder, it's glitter. And those are just craft scissors, said the other tail. They can barely cut paper. Finn scowled at the Rooks. Why are you both hiding in here? Shouldn't you be long gone? The first Rook rubbed her temples. The Tattletails were supposed to be a distraction so that we could rob the bank. But before we could escape, we caught tails of our own. We had to hide in here so no one would hear them blabbing. We've been in here all night, the other Rook said. Every time we try to sneak outside, they start calling for help. He looked like he was about to cry. I just want to go home. You just want a goat poem? Finn was having trouble following all this. Whatever, I'm getting out of here. The Rook stepped in front of him. If you leave, you might tell people where we're hiding. They folded their arms. You're not getting out of here without a fight. Finn couldn't hear what they said, but he had a pretty good idea what they meant. Have it your way. Finn, you will remember, was a stick in the mud. He could shift shape in any manner of useful tools. He stretched out his branches and started to change into something large, something heavy, something hammery. Back in the village square, Auggie was losing hope. He had tried everything he could think of to help the Tattletails, but nothing had worked. What's Professor Kate gonna say if I fail? Augie's tail piped up. Everybody look, Augie's about to cry. I am not, Auggie said, blinking. Willa tried chasing her new tail, but tripped and crashed. Ugh, 2 tails make me all wobbly. Auggie stood up. There must be some way out of this. He looked around the square. What could he use to get the Tattletails back into their crate? Auggie heard a click, click, click at the end of the street. He turned and saw Finn carrying an enormous pot of gold. You found it, Mayor Clover called. Rainbow's End is saved. Finn had no idea what she was saying. I cleaned up all the gold, lady, he said. What about the robbers? Auggie made sure to speak clearly so Finn could understand him. I cleaned them up too, if you know what I mean. Finn explained how the Rooks had tried to hold him prisoner, but he had managed to knock them out cold. As soon as the Rooks went Betty-bye, their tails just wandered off. Sure enough, two Tattletails were slithering down the street. Auggie watched as they slinked right past him and curled up inside the open crate. It looks like they have no use for sleeping people. That's it, Mayor Clover snapped her fingers. We can use that talking stick to knock everyone unconscious. Wait! Auggie looked from Finn to the crate. Everyone in town got a Tattletail except Finn. Willa gave Finn a cuddle. They must have sensed his inner goodness. More like his inner boringness, one of the tails called from inside the crate. Yeah, the other groaned. He can't hear a word we say. Is that true? Auggie turned back to Finn. They left you alone because you couldn't hear them? Beats me. Finn mined a gob of wax from his ear and flicked it to the ground. Auggie looked at Finn's wax-covered branches, and that's when he got an idea. A buzzy, brilliant idea. Auggie made everyone line up in front of Finn. He scooped out chunks of wax from Finn's branches. He handed them out. Ignore your tails and just mind your beeswax, Auggie called. Put it firmly in your ears. His own tail muttered something about how that was disgusting, but Auggie couldn't hear. He was too busy minding his beeswax. No pushing, no cutting in line, Willa said. There's plenty for everyone. You're no fun. You know it's rude to ignore people. There was plenty. It was amazing how much beeswax Finn had in his ears. One by one, the villagers put the wax in their ears, and one by one, the Tattletails got bored. I thought we were friends. Fine, then I'm not listening to you either. Auggie's own tail flopped to the ground. It's working, he shouted. He watched as his tail slinked across the square and back into the waiting crate. Bye-bye, Willa said as her tail wriggled away. As the last tail disappeared into the crate, Mayor Clover shouted, "Good riddance!" The whole town let out a cheer. Auggie approached the open crate. When he got there, he saw that all the other tails had vanished. Now there was only the first one. That wasn't so hard, Auggie said. Tell that to them, the tail muttered, peering over Auggie's shoulder. Auggie turned around to see a very angry crowd moving toward him. Mayor Clover shouted, "Quick, before it escapes! Lock that crate and throw it in the lake." Auggie blocked their way. "No locks," he said. "That's not how we treat wild beasts. It's my job to care for all creatures, no matter how hard to be loved." Auggie had never talked to a grown-up like that. He hoped it wasn't too rude. Mayor Clover looked at him for a long moment. "You've got 1 minute to get that thing out of my town," she pointed to the clock. "Otherwise, you're all going into the lake." Auggie needed to get the Tattletail to safety, and fast, but he knew some beasts couldn't be rushed. He turned back to the tail. "What's your name?" he asked. The tail scowled up at him. "Nunya." Auggie spoke in his gentlest voice, the voice he used on his crankiest critters. "Hello, Nunya. My name is Auggie, and these are my friends Willa and Finn." "Best friends," Willa cried. "Not your friend," Finn said. "We've been through this." Auggie said, "We've come to bring you to the Fabled Stables, a place without crates or robbers or anyone who can bother you. Also, lots and lots of beeswax," Finn said, "so don't get any ideas." "You have to promise not to multiply again," Auggie said. "We only have room for you." "No tattling," Nunya scowled. "You can't just stick me in some stable and expect me to be happy. If I don't have someone to tattle on, I'm nothing." Auggie thought about this. He knew the creature was right, but who in the stables would agree to having a Tattletail? And that's when he got an idea. An inscrutable, insensible idea. "Careful now," Auggie said. "You don't want to startle her." "As if we know," Finn said. Auggie gently placed the Tattletail on what he hoped was the backside of the unfeeling brute. He stepped back. "Well," Willa said, "how does it feel?" Nunya the Tattletail blinked his eyes. Suddenly his fur puffed up. I can feel what she's thinking." Auggie smiled. He had hoped this would solve more than one problem. "Can you tell if the brute wants anything?" "Let me check." Nunya cocked his head to one side like he was listening. "She wants a window so she can feel the breeze." "A window?" Willa cheered. Auggie clapped his hands. "Our one window coming up." "Hang on," Nunya said. "She's just getting started. She also wants a blanket at night, and a warm oatmeal bath, and a pet rock. and 2 pairs of shoes, and a theme song, and a balloon, and one of those little hamster wheel things but bigger, and a cool nickname, and something she calls elephant pants, and dancing lessons, and the Tattletale told every little wish and secret that the unfeeling brute carried inside. It was a long list, and at some point Auggie lost track. "Looks like these two are a perfect match," Auggie said. "Perfectly irritating," Finn groaned. Auggie nudged the stick in the mud. "You saved an entire village and stopped the Rooks. For someone who claims not to care about helping anyone, you sure are good at helping everyone." Finn squinted and wiped his cheek. "Excuse me," he murmured. "I must have beeswax in my eye." At the top of the world sat an island. At the heart of that island lived a boy named Auggie. He cared for beasts of all kinds. Some were strange, some were dangerous, some were hard to love, but every one of them belonged. The end.